Good evening, everybody. My name is Jonathan Trop. I have the privilege of chairing the Trumbull Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, and I welcome you to our meeting of June 12th, 2025. It's 7:32 p.m., and I call the meeting to order. I would invite all of you to join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. As is my wont, I will just tell folks who is here. In addition to myself, Rick Bolton, Shala Fleming, David Rosenberg, and Rodney Gray, all of the committee, the town council liaison, Jennifer Winchell, in the nick of time, Chris Powell, also of the committee. We are joined by Joanne Glasser-Ornstein, our clerk, and Paul Brown, who's running things, and by Marcus Patton, who we'll talk to in a little bit. And I thank you for joining us, sir. Correspondence. So we actually had a vast amount of correspondence in the last month, but almost all of it was in the category of spam. I don't really know what led to it, and I'm not going to try to characterize all of it, but invitations to certain meetings or calling attention to things that I don't fully understand. I will describe one of those emails to the extent that it could possibly be relevant to why we are receiving all of the others. An email address, support@governone.com on June 10th, and I didn't look to see how that date lines up with all these other things, wrote, Dear Trumbull Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion Task Force, edit. We are excited to inform you that your listing has been successfully added to GovernOne, the global directory for government institutions and services. Our platform serves as a comprehensive resource to connect individuals, businesses, and organizations, spelled with an S, so I guess not a U.S. email, with various governmental entities across the globe. Your listing is now accessible for users seeking information about your services. Each entry in our directory includes essential details such as location, contact information, a brief overview of services offered, and recent updates, ensuring that visitors can easily find what they need. And then it goes on. I'm a little concerned that whatever this is going to lead to a lot of junk coming into our mailbox, but we'll see. Putting that one aside, we received 2 emails of obvious relevance to our committee, and I shared them out to members of the committee before the meeting. I will as well read them for the benefit of those who might be attending. One of them came to us from Christine L. Eris. She wrote, you all might be mulling over how to help improve community understanding in the wake of a highly visible social media post by now former town council person, I think it's Shively, but I'm not sure how he pronounces his name. One action your task force could take would be to explore the topic of anti-Semitism via a book club selection. May I suggest that the Edit Book Club consider reading and discussing Uncomfortable Conversations with a Jew, co-authored by Emmanuel Acho and Noah Tishby. As a Gentile, I have long thought of myself as an ally to Jewish people and aware of and sensitive to the pervasiveness of anti-Semitism, but reading this book was thought-provoking and educational for me. I understand from reading the minutes of your meetings that there are already books proposed for July, Being Human, which would bring to light experiences of people with physical disabilities, and October, So You Want to Talk About Race, the latter of which I've read. Perhaps, to be timely, you can consider adjusting your schedule to slot this book in before your July choice or hosting an additional book club event. Thank you all for your continued volunteer work on behalf of everyone in our community. I suggest that when we get to the item on our agenda addressing the book club, we might talk a little bit about Ms. L. Eris's suggestion. The other email came to us from Patricia Kelly on May 14th, and Ms. Kelly writes, with the subject line, hypocrisy and lack of support for the Jewish community. Good afternoon. I included your mission statement as it is important to point out that it is false and you do not abide by it. You know very well, as it's been widely concerning throughout the town, that a Trumbull Democrat TC member made anti-Semitic remarks on social media. You've done nothing to address this. It clearly states in your mission statement that I attached the word religion. Do you pick and choose which religions you are referring to? This is exactly why this committee needs to be disbanded. You are more afraid of political repercussions than residents. Shame on you. And then below her signature, she cuts and pastes our mission statement. On our agenda for this evening is a discussion of EDIT's role in public discourse, and I suggest that we might discuss Ms. Kelly's email in the course of that discussion. Does anybody have anything that they would like to state in connection with the correspondence before I move on to our next agenda item? All right, seeing none, I will move on to the next agenda item, which is public comment. Mr. Brown, is there anybody in attendance in the public who might like to make a comment? Would you please inquire?
There's somebody named Devin. I'm not sure. I'll allow Devin to speak to see if somebody from the public.
Okay. Hello, Devin. I don't know if you intended to make a public comment or simply attending our meeting. Did you intend to comment?
No, I did not. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll put you back in the audience. Thank you for letting us know. Mr. Brown, is there anybody else?
I want to say the person 416, we spoke to them earlier. They said they would let us know, but the hand isn't raised, so we're all set.
Yeah, Mr. Cordone, who is counsel to the town and
yes,
assists the committee, is in the audience tonight, not attending as a panelist. Thank you. All right, if there's no one from the public who would like to comment, I will move on to our next agenda item. That is approval of the minutes of May 8, 2025. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our May meeting.
I'll second.
Okay. Thank you. Any discussion? All right. I believe everybody was in attendance at that meeting except Rick. And so everybody is eligible to vote except Rick. And I assume Rick will abstain. All in favor? Okay. Joanne, that carries unanimously with the one abstention. And that brings us to our discussion with Mr. Patton. So, Mr. Patton, again, I thank you for joining us this evening. I understand that you are a resident of Bristol and you chair the Bristol Diversity Council. I imagine that some of our members might have some questions for you, but before I give them any chance to have at you, I would be most grateful if you would share with us for a few minutes a little bit about the functioning of your committee and your perspective on how committees like ours can best serve the community, or anything else you'd like to share. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yes, so thank you for inviting me. Rodney, thank you for extending the invitation. I am currently the interim chair of Bristol's Diversity Council. That is our official name. Although, as you'll hear soon, we are considering a bit of a name change. But currently that is our official name, the Bristol Diversity Council. like I said, my name is Marcus Patton. I was invited on to the Diversity Council as somewhat of simply an active resident of Bristol by our then mayor, Ellen Zappo Sasu. And at the beginning of that Diversity Council, what we were trying to do, this was 2018, approaching 2019, what we were attempting to do was just bring the community together and finding new ways of community relationships and building. And then 2020 hit, which the kind of made us stay away from each other a little bit, and temperatures started to rise nationally. So at that point, the goal changed a little bit. And while we were still very centered on trying to bring the community together, we also ended up in a bit of a tug of war with the community, and just in terms of who and how we serve and in what regards. So, excuse me. We had gone through a number of leadership changes. Our mayor was chairing the council. She created it. Our mayor was chairing that council, but then obviously had other responsibilities, so handed it down to a chairperson who served for about 6 months. And then we brought in someone who does DEI work professionally. Her name was Alicia. She was a fantastic chair. We started to get some programs together. And then unfortunately, we had a bit of a mass exodus on the other side of the 2020 pandemic after an election, a Bristol election that unseated that mayor who started it and brought in Mayor Caggiano, Republican mayor, who is still the sitting mayor a couple terms later. So we then had a new chair, and we started to rebuild again. Mid last year, that chair had to move on due to school, and we needed an interim chair, and or which you'll also hear about soon, considered disbanding altogether. So that was ultimately put on my shoulders to kind of step in as an interim chair and decide whether or not we felt comfortable in this mission, that the city still felt that it needed a diversity council. And if so, what would that mean? What would that be? So there were about 5 members remaining. I got those 5 members together. We spoke for a few months and determined that we felt the community still wanted and needed our services, so we would continue, which ultimately brings us to where we are now.
Okay. So I didn't mean to interrupt. I assume that your introduction is complete and you would welcome some questions from us.
Yes, for sure. I mean, when it comes to stepping back and looking at our mission, our org, our concepts as to in terms of how we're going to go out and serve the community, there are a lot of branches there that can and should come up in conversation. But I certainly could fill your agenda up with all the things that we have going on. So I would certainly open the plate up for questions, and we can address some of the particulars as we go.
Okay. So rather than have me monopolize, I will invite other members of the committee to raise their hands, and if they've got questions for you, they can ask them, and if they don't, I've got a few.
And at your say so, I can certainly can continue to keep going. Again, like I said, I can fill your agenda. So.
Well, we've got a few things that we probably can discuss after this agenda item, but thank you. Shala, you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Marcus. Thank you for joining us. I appreciate what you shared so far. Maybe I'm going to ask a question that is what you just said. Maybe you don't want to do, but I would love to just know a little bit more about the types of supports or activities, resources, what you have put in place. I think Rodney shared with us that there was some sort of a getting to know you event or something like that had happened that he had shared with us. And so I would just love to learn more about the specific work that your committee is doing in the community.
You got it. And I can be brief. So initially, a few years back, right, at the core of the Diversity Council, in its infancy stages, we were doing things like book clubs. We were recommending films with a little bit of background as to why we were recommending those educational films. And we then kind of those weren't doing great because we were struggling, as everybody does in today's atmosphere of trying to get the word out digitally, social media. So we were struggling with attendance there. We then started to shift to when we had our largest board support, we started to branch off into a couple of different areas, business, bringing in our local businesses in Bristol as part of our efforts. A program committee who would be out trying to create things for the public to participate in. And then somewhat of a public relations team on the communication side. So we were trying to reach the community in all three of those key areas when the mass exodus happened. So then we restarted again. So last year, we pretty much centered on panel discussions. They were live and in person. They took place at our library. We had a panel discussion about religion. We had 4 or 5 different religions represented there. We had a Pride panel discussion. We had a Black History awareness panel discussion. And we had a law enforcement appreciation panel discussion. They were great for the people whom attended. Not very many attended. Again, I think it was part of getting the word out. And then I think we also struggled again with the concepts of who we were and our identity. I think the public was still relatively confused as to what we were there for. There were a number of people that just kind of openly disagreed with the DEI, the project and of DEI, the goals of DEI. So they chose not to participate. When I took over as the interim chair, I stated that if I was going to do this, I felt like I really wanted to re-envision what our role in the community would be. And that would be in celebration, education through celebration. Everybody likes to celebrate. Celebrating is something that if a resident can't get behind, then it's probably better that they don't attend a celebration. And then what we could do is those celebratory efforts would inherently include education to those. So what I did was when I reintroduced myself, Bristol has a page called Bristol Talks. It is a 35,000 member Facebook page involving people from Bristol. Bristol's a town of about 64,000 people. It's got about half the number on there. So when I reintroduced myself as the interim chair and the rebuild of the Diversity Council, I was overwhelmed at the positivity and the comments section. Bristol Talks said that it's their most engaged post this year. There were well over 1,000 likes and comments, and again, all very, very positive for a page that typically tends to be on the critical side. So what we did was I took that and I felt compelled to create a bit of a meet and greet. Off of the strength of that post, I got a lot of DMs about, this is great. Here's who I am. I'm a medical assistant. Here's who I am. I'm a dental assistant. Hey, I speak 5 languages. I would love to offer my services. These are all coming into the direct messages. So I go, okay, if the people of the city are trying to extend their hand and extend their resources, maybe this is an opportunity for our first event and say, you know what? Why don't we get back to the basics and go back to introducing ourselves to each other. How about that as a community? So our first event was a Bristol meet and greet where we invited any and everyone in the city to come, elected officials, residents from down the street, and say, we'd love to hear your name, your story, how you ended up in Bristol, a little bit about your family, your past, anything you'd like to share. And it was very well attended, easily the most attended event we've ever had since 2018. And to rave reviews, there were people from all sides of the fence, just sharing who they are, their passions for the city. So that's the first and only event that we've done under my current regime.
So let me jump in on that. I'll let you pick back up, Shala, but may I call you Marcus? Is that all
Please.
right? What Marcus just shared with us has a direct relevance to one of the issues that I think we've been struggling, maybe too strong a word, within Trumbull. Do you control any budget? Do you have any support, financial support for these events that you've been trying to foster, or how do you do that?
We are under the city's leadership, but however, the mayor let us know that we currently don't have a budget. He's not inclined at the moment to give us a budget. However, he did extend the fact that the Board of Finance is ready and willing to approve the opportunity for us to fundraise.
To fundraise. Okay. Shala, did I cut you off? Did you have a follow-up or separate question?
That actually was my follow-up question. And also,
Then I'm sorry I stole your thunder.
no, that's totally fine. Yeah, that's fine. You said that there was a mass exodus from the committee. I think I heard you say that that was maybe largely in connection to the change in the mayor, but I just wanted to just hear a little bit more about what you think led to that mass exodus of folks from the committee.
The morning after the election, I woke up to an email from the council, extremely discouraged over who won the election. And the thought was that any support that we were getting was all but gone. I challenged everyone in that email chain and said I was discouraged by what I was seeing and hearing, that I felt that diversity is always about the fight, has always been about the fight, and that we deserved the opportunity to fight for our belonging, and that was even if he was going to reject it. And so the chairperson agreed with that. They said, Marcus is right, let's continue on. And within 6 months, one by one, we had just lost just about everybody.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And then one last question, because I don't want to monopolize time either. You mentioned that sort of prior to that, you were working on a public relations team as part of the committee. Can you just share, I know it didn't maybe come all the way to fruition, but like what was the intention or the thought process behind that?
So I think at that time we were probably a panel of around 12, maybe 12 to 14 people. And we had broken off into subgroups of 3-ish. And so on the communication side, it was really just we were receiving requests and email requests through email. We were receiving requests for us to speak publicly as representation of the Bristol Diversity Council. And with 12 to 14 people, we just felt like we needed a voice. Who was going to be that voice, we didn't feel comfortable about. So we formed a small subgroup to do that for us. So we had just gotten started. They were helping out with our social media. They were helping out with prepared statements that we were getting from, at the time, the Bristol Observer, now what we call the Bristol Edition. They're not the same thing, but they're our local papers. So they were handling those duties.
Thank you so much.
You got it. Thank you.
Does anybody else have questions for Marcus?
I
David?
do have one. I do have one question. I'm curious. To use a different word, I would say wrestling is probably the word I would use to describe this. I think at times we've wrestled with how we are to serve or what our mission is in regards to the town council. I'm wondering if you can share a little bit of what your charge was from the council in Bristol to say, okay, we want to form this committee and this is what we'd like you to do, or this is what we'd like to see you involved with.
So again, that's a good one. When Ellen created the council, again, it was a unity group, and with the mission of getting folks within the community together to try to implement outreach in diversity. And it never really got off the ground based on the times. So we quickly went into those were dark times, where we got caught up, I think, trying to serve everybody. And we made some mistakes, where we were. So getting to your question, when I am one of two members that have been there since the beginning. So what I decided, with the voting approval of the rest of our council, is that that is not a part that we would take on anymore, in terms of speaking for the community. We wanted to allow the community to speak for themselves and us be a reflection of the best parts of our community. So what our mission ultimately now is to create ways for our community, for our diverse community to really celebrate itself. Okay. We're just going to create the platform to do that. We have some ideas as to how to engage different parts of our community into our mission. For example, the thought of resource groups. One of our members serves our interfaith community, as a Jewish man who continues to find ways to serve Connecticut in terms of education of the Jewish community and celebration of the Jewish community. So he, for example, can and may serve in the future as a representative of the Interfaith Coalition as a resource group. And what they then could do is to bring those discussions back around the table in this form. But then when our meeting adjourns and we go back out into the community, those subgroups can work their business. They can bring back dates for their events. They can bring back literature, as his name is Jeff Israel, that he's been doing. He's been bringing back literature. And those things have been sparking the potential of our next events. For example, one of our next events very well may be a open discussion on words, and words matter. For example, resilience has been a big topic of discussion, the word resilience. For the people of Bristol, the word resilience and what that means to you, and allowing our community to speak to each other about the diverse way that they see diverse words and topics. Really, again, just to create a platform to show the community that, one, we are more together than we are divided. Two, it's okay to just listen, and then ask questions. But we're going to try to do the thinking and listening for what the community is looking for. If I may, so I responded. Remember, I told you about that Bristol Talks post that I had. One of the nuggets in there that I mentioned was we've been standing back and we've been watching and listening to the community. And with that, we want to rebuild this council to reflect what this company, what this council, what this town, what this city wants us to represent. And I got a question. I got one response on that. They said, hey, I'd like to point out this section right here where you said you've been listening and watching. What does that mean? And I thought that was interesting that they pointed it out. And I responded the fact that, again, on Bristol Talks, it's all there. And it's not all, a lot of it's great. Not a lot of it's great, but it's all there. So as we watch for the pulse of our people, how they feel, what they want to talk about, what they want to engage in, what makes them feel underrepresented. We've been taking notes so we can try to reflect that, because we don't want the Diversity Council to be about what we want it to be and what we think it should be. We want our council to reflect how our residents feel in totality. Every event can't reflect everybody, so we need to have different events that reflect different parts of our community. So that was what I answered to that person, and I hope answers your question.
That was great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raise your hands up.
Yes. You said you started in 2018. Was that when?
Yes, Rick. Yeah.
So you started during the first Trump administration, and then you had a change in your local leadership from Democratic to Republican. So you've been locally under a Democratic administration with a Republican federal, and you've also had time with the reverse, where you had a Democratic federal administration and Republican local. You are now Republican both ways. Are you seeing any interesting change in terms of whether or not there's pressure for you to disband or pressure to change your mission? Could you just spend a minute or two commenting on how the overarching political landscape is affecting your group?
Yes. From my individual perspective, I haven't seen much impact on the federal level either way. So that's been great. It impacts the larger community, and we find ways to respond to that locally. I want to compliment and commend our current mayor, Jeff Caggiano, for his transparency. He is currently the Republican mayor. We were assigned a council representative to attend our meetings and bring information back to the city council meetings. We had that for about a year under the first term, the first administration of his first year of his first term. And then that representative fell away. When I questioned the mayor about where our representation from the city went, he said, to be honest, we're a bit overworked. All my council members have a number of other city meetings to attend. And quite honestly, you guys aren't at the top of the food chain in terms of how our council sees you. Not me, meaning our mayor, in terms of how our council sees you. So I appreciate him admitting the fact that at that point, there weren't any council members that wanted to come. He said, so what I will do is I will come to your meetings. At any chance I get, I will come. So our mayor is the one that once, about this time last year, we lost our last chair. He said, hey, I feel there's a need for the Diversity Council, and I would love to see you guys continue to go. That said, he's the one that asked us to consider if the city felt as though we were needed, and or a rebrand, as he was seeing the term DEI start to have a negative start to have a negative undertone to it nationally in the business world across. So he said it may be worth considering. I'm not telling you to do anything. Once we did that, we came back and said, yep, this is what we'd like to do. And from that point on, outside of the fact that him saying, I don't have the money to give you guys a budget, he's been a champion of our team. He's been a champion of our mission. And more recently, they gave us a representative back and assigned one of our city council people to our group. And two other city council members have started to attend our meetings without having to, just for their general interest of what we've been doing. So we've actually gotten more city support this year than we have in a really long time.
Very good.
So let me follow up on that with what I think may be the last question for you, although I won't foreclose it if someone else has a burning question and you have a few more minutes. Would you share with us a little bit about the logistics, the mechanics, the legalities of your organization? What I mean is, how frequently do you meet? Do you meet in person or by Zoom or by both? Are you a government entity and a creature of government and therefore subject to FOIA, et cetera? Those kinds of mechanics, if you would.
Sure. We do fall under the city, and we are bound by FOIA. So because of that, we politically, we need minority representation as well, right, on the political side, which was also, again, part of why the mayor was considering having us detached from the city, because he felt as though the fact that there was an R in front of his name was getting in the way of people joining our team and joining our mission, and he didn't want to be a part of that. So he'd recommended a task force. Hey, maybe if you guys want to become a part of one of the mayor's task force, then there are potentially certain things that you aren't bound by Robert's rules, and which we then learned that we still ultimately maybe a little looser Robert's rules, but a lot of those things that fall under the government, we would still end up having to do. So very recently, we were going to go into a task force. We decided with help from the city and the city's attorneys and the clerk's office that we would continue under the city. So since we remain under the city, we have use of City Hall where we do our meetings. So our meetings are on the last Tuesday of every month in person, although we do have a Zoom. We are represented via Zoom for the public and or any council members that can't physically make it in. Our council meetings run for about an hour and a half. And currently we're typically discussing, again, since we only have about 5 members, it's hard we have a quorum almost no matter what we do. So it's been very difficult for us to find times outside of that monthly meeting to collaborate for ideas. So we are working on recruitment. But again, we do have to consider political affiliation as we make sure that we're represented across the board. So that's a bit of how we're built at the moment, I think. Were there any other things you threw out on that end that I didn't answer?
No, I think you hit it all. Thank you.
Okay.
Does anybody else have a burning question for Marcus while we have the opportunity? I don't want to foreclose anybody who's got a question. Okay, I don't see one. Marcus, thank you so much for joining us. I hope that this is not the last, but only the next of the opportunities that we will have to cross fertilize and to share ideas and support one another. We certainly appreciate your coming out and sharing with us a little bit about the Diversity Council in Bristol, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. And I would like to, if at all possible, right, I'm going to let our council know that I met with you all today, and I did enjoy my experience. I think us collaborating more city to city is is the best way to go about it. So I'd like to introduce the possibility with our council on potentially inviting a representation from your team to join our meeting one day and talk a bit about you guys' mission and some of the things that you guys have been able to accomplish. I think that'd be great for us to hear.
Okay, well, if we receive the invitation, we'll send a worthy representative or me. So thank you so much. You are welcome to stick around for the meeting, but you are also welcome to run for the hills. That's your call.
Thank you very much. I'm currently on the job, so I'm going to go ahead and run for the hills. But I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcus.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Appreciate you.
All right. Unless there's anything further, I'm going to move on to the next item of business. Now under old business and diversity training update. I may have lost the thread on that just a little, but the last I heard, there was a plan to do a training for the First Selectman and her cabinet tomorrow for a few hours. I don't know if that date has stuck or not. The participants did elect to do it without us. I think they are of the belief that it will be a more familiar, comfortable environment for the kinds of discussions they want to have if they do it that way, which is fine. I'll have to circle back with Tom McCarthy and confirm that it happened if it did, or what happened to it if it didn't. I don't know if anybody has any more information than I do. The last email I saw is now maybe a week or two old. All right. Next item on our agenda is the book club.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, John. My phone. I want to jump in with that. I don't think it happened yet. The last I saw on the thread, I think they were looking at the 20th. I saw that Tom was ill and had COVID, and they had to reschedule. So I think they're looking at next week, from what I saw.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you. There's an email that noted a possible date of June 24th or Friday, the 27th of June. But I don't believe that there's, at least on the sort of thread that's been moving, I don't see a response from Tom about that yet. So I don't know if it's worthwhile for one of us to jump in and just check on that, because I didn't see a response from him. David Schroeder put those two dates out as possibilities after Tom asked about the week of June 23rd.
Did I get dropped from that chain, or did I somehow just miss it?
You're on it.
All right, I must have just missed it. All right, well, thank you for that correction. And we'll hope that something comes together for the next couple of weeks.
Oh, one quick
Next
note
item.
on that. Did you get a note that about that they were going to do the training privately? I didn't see that in the correspondence there.
Tom McCarthy let me know that that's what their preference was.
Okay, thank you.
Book club. So we have scheduled for July 28th at 6 p.m. Being Human, and for October 6th at 6 p.m. So you want to talk about race. As discussed or indicated during the recitation of correspondence, Christina L. Aris has suggested a book addressing anti-Semitism, and she suggested that for timeliness, we might want to slot it in ahead of or instead of the book we currently have scheduled for July. I will share with you my perspective, which is that I guess I'll state it bluntly. Sadly, anti-Semitism is not going away anytime soon.
Right.
And so my personal view is that there is no need to rearrange anything to be timely.
Right.
And I would propose that we take up her suggestion when we consider books after the two that are scheduled. But it's not my intention to control that decision. I wanted to invite discussion on that.
Well,
Shala.
Yeah, I appreciate Christine's outreach and the recommendation of the text. From a purely logistical standpoint, the library has already gotten the copies of Being Human, and we've already started to advertise that as the next book. And so it might be just a little disruptive to try to change that at this point. I also agree with what you said about anti-Semitism not going away. So I do think it's a book we should absolutely consider adding in at some point, perhaps after the two that we've got. But I also do not believe that we need to necessarily change course at this point.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
I just wanted to concur that unfortunately, I think we've had anti-Semitism for a few thousand years, and we're unfortunately likely to have it for at least a few more. In terms of timeliness, I apologize that I occasionally look at my phone. And I don't know if anybody else did, but in terms of timeliness, Israel just attacked Iran. So
Okay.
maybe the timeliness issue is going to get escalated here a little bit. So anyway, I completely agree that there's no reason for us to change our schedule. There are some people that probably already, started to read the book for July, so I wouldn't want to see us change that at all. And unfortunately, I don't think there's any timeliness issue here that makes it so that June of 2025 is absolutely the time that we have to bring, an aspect of what we do relative to the Jewish community to the forefront.
David?
Putting
you.
current events aside, thank you, Rick, for sharing that.
Yeah.
I did note that the October book club is right around the high holidays, and that might be something to consider in regards to whether or not we replace that book for that period of time. Just food for thought.
So the book that we have selected for October is one of the banned books and during banned book week, but that does not, I mean, you raise an interesting point about, other events on the calendar that would line up. Shala.
I just also wanted to raise that, being how we have gone about the book clubs with in partnership with the library, we would need to make sure that we can get sufficient copies of this text through the interlibrary loan, because Kathleen had kind of given us a list, and there's some criteria by which or through which they're able to kind of get a large quantity of books. So we would also want to confirm that they can do that if we're going to execute in the same way that we have to date, whenever we decide to read them.
Yeah, I have no reason to think that they won't be able to get this book, nor necessarily that if there's a limit on the number of books they can get, that would prevent us from using this text. But I appreciate the point. I'm jumping ahead a little bit, or maybe making a tangent a little bit. I tend to resist the suggestion that the kerfuffle in Trumbull, which we will discuss a little bit later in the meeting, is that big a deal that this book needs to be pushed forward in order to address that incident. We can talk more about that, but that's my perspective. And so hearing nobody having an interest in swapping out the book for July, and by the way, I'm about halfway through that book and it's interesting. Let's leave Being Human where it is. We still have a little bit of time if we decide we want to do something in the fall that's different, and we can visit that even after the July 28th, but certainly at our July meeting. And so let's leave the schedule the way it is unless there's an objection that I've missed. Okay. Next item on the agenda is the townwide survey. Rick, we passed this last month because you were not with us. I don't know whether there's anything to report this month, but if there is, you've got the floor.
I made, a few changes. Has anything happened? I missed last meeting, unfortunately. Has anything happened in terms of discussions with town, officials in terms of what they might want to see as the survey? I'm just wondering, has anything transpired that I'm unaware of that would
No.
alter what we think should be included in our survey?
No, not at all. The order of operations, as I've understood it, is that we're going to develop a survey that we think makes sense
Mhm.
and then discuss that with the town, both in terms of any input they might have, but especially in terms of any support they might be able to provide for distribution.
Mhm.
I don't think that we ought to be going to the town getting input into a survey before we have a well-developed idea of, I think,
Okay.
the survey that we would like. And so if you've tweaked it in light of the discussion we had back in April, I guess,
Mhm.
I would encourage you to circulate it, and we'll
Will
put it
do.
back on the agenda for July and see if we can, as a group, come to a consensus about what we think the survey ought to be.
Will do.
Great. Any other discussion on the survey before I move on to new business? Okay. So, new business. We've now alluded to this twice in this meeting. Once in relation to the screed from Ms. Kelly, and once in connection with the discussion of the book club. I assume at this point a familiarity by everybody on the committee with the kerfuffle involving the councilman, but rather than assume it, I will briefly describe the background, and then we can have a little bit of a discussion. Chris, did you have a question or concern before I move on?
Yeah, I actually was just about to ask what happened between former town councilman Shively and his comments.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if I can answer that question exactly as you put it, but back in the first half of May, Councilman Shively posted on his personal Facebook page a comment that I think he would probably be the first to agree was, in retrospect, not well crafted, in which, and he knew it. I mean, he said at the time he was going to say something incendiary. I'm not sure if he really appreciated exactly how it would be construed or misconstrued. And his comment was, and I'm paraphrasing because I haven't memorized it, I don't have it in front of me, but something to the effect that Jewish supremacy is every bit as bad as white supremacy, or exactly the same as white supremacy, or some similar formulation.
I think he said identical.
Is identical to? All right, thank you. So that comment received a number of reactions. It received reactions from political spheres. It received reactions from community members, some Jewish, some not Jewish. And there are some members of our community who are Jewish who expressed offense, took offense. Other Jewish members of the community who were not offended. A number of people who believe they deeply understand exactly what the councilman meant, the former councilman meant, and a large number of people who have expressed bemusement, hard to understand exactly what he meant. And
Was there any context?
I not in the post. There may have been external context, world
So that was
events
the
and
whole
otherwise.
post.
That
That
was
was
the whole
whole
post. Whole post.
Okay.
So, in the wake of those that post, the Republican Town Committee called for his resignation and condemned his remarks as anti-Semitic. I'm not entirely sure exactly what the Democrats said, but they made I think the first selectman and maybe the Democrats generally made some comments, and maybe Jennifer, and would share with us, but essentially suggesting that the post was disappointing at the least. And I don't know what conversations, if any, took place behind closed doors, but Councilman Shively resigned pretty quickly thereafter. And in various places, including on his own post, in comments on his own post, he issued certain apologia in which he did not withdraw his comments, but he apologized for the wording and to those who took offense. And we could certainly have a conversation around whether what Councilman Shively, former Councilman Shively, posted was anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic, and what actions, if any, should have been taken by Edit or by others. The conversation I'd like to have is a little bit of a first derivative of the question of what was to have been done in May by us. I'd like to have a conversation around what our role is when events like this occur. And so sort of a more forward-looking conversation. I do have some thoughts about this particular event, and to the extent that they are material to the conversation that I'd like us to have, I'm certainly happy to share them. But I would note, so that everybody is aware of it, that the vice chair of the Republican Town Committee shared on Facebook a condemnation of the post and an observation. I think that the Republican Town Committee had called for the resignation, and there were a number of comments that followed, including a comment by Ms. Kelly, who wrote to us in her email, in which she called for
Can someone
edit.
go on mute? The background noise is getting really too much. Whoever's got the bird or whatever, could they go on mute, please? Thank you.
Called for comment by Edit, specifically tagged me and asserted that Edit had a responsibility to comment and to address what Ms. Kelly certainly said she viewed as anti-Semitism. And in at least one comment said, observed her incredulity that Edit had not acted and that I had not acted. She said, the chairman of Edit is Jewish. And I find some irony in that. My experience has been that when people who are not Jewish are identifying other people as Jewish in public discourse, good things tend not to follow. And the diversity of opinion in the Jewish community about what this post meant is important to recognize, and singling out any member of the Jewish community as representative of the views of the Jewish community is problematic. So that's the background that causes me to put on the agenda the opportunity for a discussion of our role in public affairs. And to the extent that there was an assertion that I or Edit had any obligation to respond in real time to a private post, or that Edit is failing in its mission for not immediately commenting, I don't agree with that. And I wanted to provide an opportunity for this group to discuss how we should handle these things. We have, by the way, visited on issues like this in the past. At our inception and early on, we talked a little bit about what our role ought to be and how we should deal with social media. And at least at that time, those of us who constituted the committee concluded that we did not regard it as our responsibility to engage on social media with everything that was posted and act in real time. And I would add, not incidentally, I think, that Edit has occasionally engaged on social media, publicizing events and whatnot. And we have tried to be fair and inclusive. And so we have posted on both Keep Trumbull Real and Trumbull Talks. And the reception on Trumbull Talks has sometimes been hostile. And on at least one occasion, when I made a benign post about something Edit was doing, folks on that page chose to attack one of my daughters. So that bears on this discussion as well, I think. So that's all by way of background. I don't intend to monopolize the conversation, but as you can tell, I have some views. I would invite discussion. We're not bound by the decision that this committee made 3 or 4 years ago about how to deal with social media. If we conclude that we ought to be taking a more proactive role in some fashion, then we can revisit that. I would note that we meet monthly, and so all of these things happened shortly after our last meeting. And to the extent that we operate as a committee, there wasn't an opportunity for the committee to act sooner unless we called a special meeting. Frankly, the councilman had resigned within a day or two, and so we could not possibly, within a day, we could not possibly have caused anything to have happened with any greater alacrity than it did. So I don't know that we as a committee are well constituted to be quite that reactive to fast-moving events. But with all of that, and I apologize, I've droned on maybe for longer than I intended, I invite comment and discussion. Rick.
I certainly don't agree, or I should say, I don't think that we should be reacting to social media, broadcast media, anything that's happening with our public officials or within our community. I do not see it as we have an obligation to react quickly to put out our perspective. I don't see that as the role of this task force. The particular situation, I really would be uncomfortable saying that I know exactly what he meant. If there was a sentence before or a sentence after, it would be a whole lot easier to interpret. but I think it's reasonable to say that there are multiple ways you could interpret that one line. If you were to add after that line, and both concepts have no place in society, it takes on an entirely different meaning than the way apparently most people are interpreting it. So without context, even if we thought that we should be commenting on that in some time frame, I would not have been willing to, I don't think, endorse any statement, because I would not have felt comfortable that I knew what the intention of the former Congress or councilman was.
Yeah, you and I keep promoting him. Shala?
In my experience in this town, there's a lot that gets said on social media.
Yeah.
And very often it is hideous, horrible commentary. And I find it interesting that we are being chastised for not responding to this particular commentary when there are countless other terrible comments that present on any variety of social media pages in this town. And so I agree with everything that's been shared so far as whether we have an obligation to respond. We do not. Social media is social media. There's nothing about our mission statement that suggests that we have any responsibility to respond to anything posted in that way. What we do have a responsibility to respond to is public comment or correspondence that comes to this committee, as we've done tonight in receiving the correspondence from Ms. Kelly. As we've done previously when we received correspondence from a community member about struggles their family member had with racist comments in the school district. That is what we have an obligation to respond to. And I don't see any reason why we would need to think we should do anything but that.
We agree.
I would note that we did not receive an email or any other contact from a single Jewish member of our community to us expressing offense or otherwise. David.
I have so much to say. I hope I can keep my thoughts straight. I've been sitting here reading and rereading the mission statement over and over again and trying to understand how one could interpret it to say that this committee needed to say something publicly. As a matter of fact, if anything, and to be somewhat provocative, what an interesting response to this would be to invite the councilman here to talk to us, to explain and contextualize his comments. I'll throw that out there for future consideration. That would be something this committee could certainly do if that was so within our desire to do it. I just have to go back to something that Marcus said when he said, "Let the community speak for itself." And I wrote it down with quotes on my pad here because that's what I think this committee's job is to do, is to listen to people and not necessarily take a position. Because with the news that Rick just dropped about Iran, we're not going to come out and say something publicly about, the state of Israel. I mean, it's craziness. I think clearly that email is written to belittle this committee and point out something that they don't particularly like. And it's like, look, see, here's the evidence. I totally agree with what Shala said. It is not our purview to do that.
Jennifer.
I would agree with Shala. That incident happened really quickly. It was a Thursday night, and Friday morning he had resigned. And there was some backlash as far as people like Miss Kelly and whatnot, and the things they had to say. But I would agree with Shala that this committee does not have that obligation to comment on things that come up on social media. It would just muddy the water so much. We would just never be found again. Okay.
Thank you. Chris?
I also want to make it known that I do also agree with Shala that we shouldn't have any obligation to respond to any statements that are written on social media. If we were to respond to every statement that was written on social media, it would just dilute the purpose of what we do as a committee. And you have people like me who aren't even on Facebook who had no idea what was going on. So I agree with Shala. I agree with everyone.
So, I don't know if anybody else has anything else they'd like to add. If not, I've got at least one final word. Okay. I don't disagree with Shala. I'm gonna actually expand, I think, on the point. It's not just a social media issue. The suggestion that Ms. Kelly has made that we are hypocritical not to castigate and condemn the former councilman for his remarks because our mission statement uses the word religion, and to accuse us of picking and choosing among religions is so off base as to be worthy of response. Our mission statement talks about welcoming people, listening to people, being inclusive. And a response that canceled Mr. Shively for his comment without seeking to understand it is antithetical to our mission rather than supportive.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there are people who have regarded what he said as anti-Semitic. I think that there is certainly room for other understanding. My understanding was different. And I spoke with former Councilman Shively, because I think that our mission is consistent with reaching out to people and talking to people and trying to understand where they're coming from rather than canceling and condemning. And I find it ironic that people who have criticized our committee and accuse us of being a canceling committee call us hypocritical for failing to cancel when we are not a canceling committee. We are a welcoming committee. And it is very clear to me from my conversation with Mr. Shively that his intention was different. His words, though unfortunate, were misconstrued. And his sense, Rick, was exactly as you described, that any form of supremacy, claimed supremacy, is inappropriate and problematic. And I think he expressed himself poorly, and I think he would acknowledge it. So I absolutely reject the claim that we are hypocritical, and I appreciate the conversation and the discussion. I think that we have a consensus that our role is to continue to perform our mission, and that our mission does not require us to respond to every comment that's made on social media. Does anybody have anything else that they want to add on this subject?
Do we have an obligation to respond to her?
I guess I was going to say I suspect she will be paying attention, but I don't know. Does anybody think that a written response to Ms. Kelly is appropriate?
Wasn't this the response?
I think what I will do, unless anybody objects, is send her an email on behalf of the committee, thanking her for her email and letting her know that we had a robust discussion that is available should she wish to watch it.
That's great.
The link. And
That
send the
works.
link.
That works.
Agreed.
I do have a question too. I'm also want to say that I agree 100% of the overall consensus of staying off social media. But I think what David was asking, I do find interesting because John, you had the chance to talk to the councilman, and I think what David was asking is there a space, or would it be appropriate for the invitation to hear that, or is that kind of out of our wheelhouse? Does that get sticky? Because I need to learn. I would like to learn more too than just in terms of reading a post, But the overall and the end result was that he resigned. So,
I mean, the short answer is that if the committee would like to invite him, I'll extend the invitation. I suspect he would accept. His view, I think sincerely held, but certainly as expressed to me, is that he is willing at any time to engage in constructive conversation and would welcome it so that people understand where he was coming from, and so that something good comes from what is otherwise a disappointing chapter and a close to his service on the town council. And so if we wanted to invite him, I suspect he would accept.
If we're being inclusive, then that would include him as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I said, I think that the conversation I wanted to have was the first derivative conversation about what our role is, and not a conversation necessarily around poorly chosen words. But if folks would like to have a conversation about the underlying event, I'm happy to invite him. So you just let me know.
Sorry, Jonathan, I would just throw back to you that since you did speak with him, I think you're in a unique position to at least inform this committee whether you think that would be useful, a good use of our time. Do you think we would likely learn anything different? I mean, I don't think anyone's interested in necessarily, dredging up things that have happened in the past and wanting to move on. But
I have two answers to that. I mean, the simple answer, David, is yes. I think that it would be a constructive and interesting conversation, and he would welcome it. The flip side of that coin is that I think we can be reasonably confident that the people who have had the loudest voices in objection to his remarks would criticize us for giving him a platform and elevating his conversation. And that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, because I think that again, our mission statement is consistent with inviting open and honest conversation. And if we'd like to do it, I'm perfectly amenable, but we can be reasonably confident that it will cause people to have an outcry.
I'll go on the record and say that's exactly the reason we probably should do it, for exactly that reason. Because if we stand by what we stand for, then this would be this to me feels like the next logical thing to do. And downside of free speech, you're not going to like everything that everyone says. I don't know what his answer is going to be, but
if we were to do that, would we also wish to then invite anybody else to participate in the conversation who has expressed concern with his views or with his statement? Or do you envision this as simply a discussion with Mr. Shively?
I don't
assume that
think
wasn't directed to, sorry, go ahead, Rick, sorry.
Yeah, I don't think we need to turn this into an open debate. Within the purview of this group, he's done something that has had a strong public reaction. He was an elected official. I think there's ambiguity in terms of what he meant and why I would be perfectly okay with, as part of one of our monthly meetings, we make an attempt to remove some of the ambiguity. I think that would be an entirely appropriate thing for this committee to do for the purpose of, openness, transparency. We're not trying to throw lighter fluid on this. We're trying to do just the opposite. So I wouldn't feel like we have to, immediately say, oh, by the way, we're going to do this. So would someone, like to turn this into, point counterpoint? We don't need to do that as the next step.
Joanne?
Yeah, I do have an opinion, but I'm not weighing in my opinion on this topic. I just wanted to let you know that I'm at work and we're closing, and I need to run out to at least go to my car. So if you want to continue talking, I'm happy to run out and go in my car and continue this, but I have to leave. So,
Do you have 3 or 4 minutes? I think we'll wrap up.
I have 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah, we close at 9.
Jennifer?
The town council has met since this happened, and he was replaced by Tom Whitmore, and the Democratic side voted Tom in. That was the only mention of this at all. It's as though it has disappeared. Nobody is talking about it at this point.
So is it your suggestion that we not perpetuate it by inviting Mr. Shively? Is that the point?
Seems to me you're just continuing to stir up something that is just going to die a death of its own.
Well, that's a good point, and maybe that is the right course of action then.
Okay.
Sala?
Yeah, I think my inclination was much like Jennifer's, that this moment has happened. We've moved on. There's been a natural consequence for former Councilman Shively in that he is no longer able to serve the town of Trumbull in the ways that he has for all the time that he has. And for me, it does not feel productive per se, to invite him here to share, though I do think it would potentially align with our mission. So I think for me, the question is, what would we be trying to accomplish if we do invite him? If we're inviting him so that this committee can learn more about his take and sort of what was behind what he had to say, and we feel like that's important for us, sure. If we feel like the intention is to give the former councilman a platform to be able to more broadly clarify what he meant, maybe. Because I do think that there is an important sort of space for knowledge sharing and learning that is the mission of this committee. But I'm not sure that those who were so loudly opposed to what the former councilman said, I don't know that would be productive. I'm not sure that it would add anything, right, for some of those folks. The other thing that I would offer is that, like you, John, people who want to learn more can reach out to the former councilman directly, right? Like, so I don't know that our committee needs to hold a space when people, if they so choose, if they want to know more, want to learn more, can reach out to him directly, just as you did.
I'm going to suggest that we don't reach a conclusion on this, and we can revisit if we want to invite him. We have a meeting every month, and we can come back to it. I say this for the sake of time at this late hour, unless anybody has a further remark that they feel important to have stated tonight.
I do.
Invite him.
I'll be quick. So we get this time. I'm gonna follow up with Mary Hogue. I hope I'm not mispronouncing her name. She is runs the Fairfield Sustainable Fairfield Equity Commission. I think that's what it's called. So I'm gonna just follow with her to see if she and the co-chair can come on board to do what Marcus did tonight. That way we could just kind of let this simmer for a second, and then I can just reach out to her and see if she can do July.
Well, I think we're going to have someone from SEPTA in July, so see if they're available in August or September, please.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. Unless anybody's got anything else burning tonight, I'll invite a motion.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
For a second. All right. All in favor? That one carried unanimously, always does. Thank you,
Always.
everybody. I
you.
appreciate the discussion. Joanne will get you out of there with 60 seconds to spare.
Great conversation. Great conversation tonight. Thank you.
That was good. Yeah, that was good. Okay, good
night.
night, everyone.
Night.